Have you ever wondered about the connection between thoughts and visual representation while walking around your college building? Hello, creative people! At this session, we will review some design outcomes as part of my freelancing journey and the campaign visuals I worked on with my team at my full-time job. I will use the work samples to introduce topics from this book, including visual research and synthesis. We will go over 3 key concepts, starting with the relationship between the designer, audience, and messages, followed by exploring materials and the production process investigation, concluding with the designer's involvement in synthesizing a complex series of 5 factors. Part 1. Audience and message. It is crucial to consider the relationship between the designer and the client, and between the client and the audience, as well as that between the designer, the designed object, and the audience. The designer may play only one part within the creative team involved in the project, yet the negotiation between the client and designer is a critical part of developing and defining the brief itself. Sometimes the client may be unclear as to the specific intentions of the message itself, or unsure of the best way to target a particular audience. The designer can play a central role in revising and defining the brief in order to address specific needs and provide a practical solution. One of my projects was a personal brand visual system for a tour guide. The client knew he needed an identity that included a logo, colors, patterns, and stationery, yet the client didn't address the need to be able to produce endless visuals that target the audience without a designer's help. Knowing him personally, I used his handwriting as the base visual solution for the identity system. To convince the client before working on the idea, I used my visual research results to address why this solution is the best way to create a flexible system that can be both personal and versatile. Having clear objectives that the client and designer agree on defines a brief that results in producing effective visual solutions. This project is an example of the context experiment model. It is when the client is unsure. Therefore, the designer's initial research can help inform the project's directions. On the other hand, the context definition model is when the client has a good knowledge of their market and audience. For example, Center 3 Guideline Book defines every aspect of the visual system. An important stage of the visual research process is getting familiar with the visuals by reading all the pages before starting to design. When developing the outcomes, our role was to design the visual solutions by following the brand book, and at the same time, keep in mind that the target audience is the employees at Center 3. Contextual research conducted by the graphic designer can provide a strong base on which to develop an appropriate and valuable visual solution. Ultimately, graphic design serves to visually communicate with a specific audience. Accordingly, designed objects exist within a social structure and are read by their receivers from a particular cultural perspective. This recognition is central to the understanding of audience-specific graphic design. It is essential to consider the role the audience themselves play in the construction of meaning within the context of visual communication. We live within networks of messages, signs, information, and knowledge which produce our experience of ourselves, society, and all that we consider real. There are 2 parts to the development of a successful design solution: a sense of familiarity with the graphic languages already understood by the target audience, and the knowledge of existing materials with which the proposed message will compete. You might all know the previous graphic language used for the Saudi National Day celebration. Everyone used the pattern all over the place. For this task, our team knew we needed a key visual that stands out and competes with the huge amount of material existing on the same day. Since the client's main products were stationery items, we visually mixed and matched the most suitable products to recreate the familiar existing patterns. Our team created an effective solution by understanding the graphic language that the Saudi audience is familiar with and anticipating the design that will be used for the National Day. This approach helped us catch the viewer's attention and encourage interaction. Giving a greater emphasis to the receiver of the message is a way of thinking about design and communication that allows the designer to view the reader as an active, rather than a passive, participant in the communication process. One of the students I mentored wanted to capture the audience's attention by making them pause. Active participation was designed to deliver the message more effectively. In addition, the designer attempted to engage the audience in a dialogue to enhance the experience. The setup was planned by choosing the most suitable materials to deliver the message and make people comprehend the visual while walking, which is the second key concept we will discuss today. Process and materials. Meaning in graphic design outcomes is communicated through the flexibility of materials and the object's physical nature. Graphic design is a product with a complex range of signifiers. Thus, the processes of material experimentation run in parallel to the visual research process. The visual research methodology is primarily concerned with the composition of visual elements. Moreover, materials research follows a similar investigation with the tactile form of the designed object. Through a range of tests related to the visual and tactile form of the graphic outcome of a project, the designer can focus the intended message more clearly in the eyes and hands of the viewer. My graduation project thesis explored the tactile options graphic designers can use to enhance sensory communications. After graduation, I worked on an experimental personal project. The aim was to convert the visual system elements into an interactive kit by exploring various materials and production techniques. Starting with the main item, the coloring bag. The intention was to allow each person to customize their bag. I achieved this feature by printing the illustration with black ink using silkscreen on a canvas fabric as the product surface. Moreover, the same design was printed on craft paper. Thinking about how to make the kit content more interactive, I turned the characters into stickers that could be colored as well. On the one hand, I tried to print the phrases on colored paper with black ink, and on the other hand, I modified the design to convert it into an acrylic topper. In addition, it was engraved on a wooden surface. Last but not least, I photographed the kit items and converted the photos into social media posts and website banners. The previous example was a personal project. For this reason, I controlled all the decisions and material choices. Whereas in a studio setting, factors impact the designer's choices. Necessity, budget, and production speed can significantly limit the range of materials selected to complete a project. We faced a challenge when the Founding Day's first season was announced. Most clients weren't expecting this event, and everything needed to be completed by creatives and the production team in a very short time. Our team suggested publishing a newspaper to be distributed with every meal bought during the Founding Day. While the creative writers started by developing ideas based on the literature research, the design team proceeded with the visual research to set an appropriate art direction. The visual research focused on the key aesthetic that can be used to design a newspaper. The newspaper's parts include the logo, the headlines, the body text and typefaces, the ad designs, the frames and ornament, the tables, the poem, the photographs effect, the illustration style, and last but not least, the grid systems. As we started assembling all the parts, we used mock-ups to ensure the layout was logically organized for the reader. When the client approved the design, the files were sent to the press a few days before the event. Thankfully, the promotional newspapers were ready to be distributed on the Founding Day. On the contrary, the Center 3 launch event project. As print and screen technologies develop, so new working methods and aesthetic possibilities are opened up for the designer. From the start of the project, the client decided that the key visuals would be displayed on large screens. So the team had adequate time to conduct visual research to choose the right visuals to deliver the message inspired by Center 3 logo. Unlike the newspaper project, this client had the chance to approve the designs on the same day of the event, and the team submitted the animated version only hours before the launch. Hang in there. We're almost done. Third and last key concept, synthesis. The models and methodologies developed at earlier stages can be assessed and built upon as the project develops and progresses toward completion or conclusion. The everyday work consists of the process of synthesizing a complex series of factors ranging from production process, budgets, deadlines, messages, and audience. Often, the interrelationship of these factors will influence the outcome of a project beyond the designer's original intention. The ability to prioritize and respond to the various factors emerging in the course of a project is a crucial skill to develop as a designer. The synthesis may require an analysis of how the initial work undertaken can be translated by the designer into a final set of visual outcomes. The analysis of these factors provides the basis for the final stages of the research. The factors would include historical and contemporary background context. In a studio setting, this part is usually given as results and suggestions by the client and analyzed by the strategy team to extract relevant insights. The second factor is the audience's relationship to other existing work in the area under investigation. This campaign focuses on spreading awareness for the elderly's social health. The client specified that the campaign is not expected to follow the vibe of MCIT, Tech for All campaign, but instead a friendly and more generic representation familiar to the Gulf countries' culture and society. The client also suggested avoiding the vibrant color scheme used previously for young adults' audience. The intention is to avoid rich colors and make this campaign suitable for a larger range of people. The third factor is the exploration of relevant media. The council usually builds versatile campaign elements distributed as different media with a range of adaptions, including key visuals, infographics, and a booklet. This notion was considered while developing the art directions assets for the elderly campaign. The flexible system allows the design team to produce endless outcomes based on the relevant media. The fourth factor is budgetary considerations. Not all campaign budgets cover a photo shoot session, but this campaign does. The design team developed the key visuals as a storytelling scene to take advantage of the fact that we don't need to use stock images. As you can notice, the people in the samples are not from the Gulf countries, but at this stage, the visual research is used to demonstrate the art direction for the client. This leaves us to the last factor, reflection upon any testing and feedback that has taken place from the stakeholders' side. Since the client approved the previous art direction, the team used visual research to create a photography brief. A photography brief is a document the design team prepares for the photographer. It describes the photography style and aesthetic, in this case, storytelling through the characters. Sample photos and visuals are used to describe the scene's main elements, identify the elderly age, wellness, and versatile Gulf nationalities. Important points to remember that will help convert the photographs into the final layout later. After receiving the raw photos, it was time to research for the best shot for each scene visually. This step was followed by retouching the chosen photography to match the art direction, and finalizing the key visual layout by adding the illustration and the creative writer's copy. This is all for today. I hope these examples gave a glimpse of how visual research and synthesis are used within real-world projects. So, how are you going to integrate theory and practice as well as critical reflection in work, rather than about work, to become a graphic designer that is practical and intellectual? Best of luck in your future explorations.